There's a reason some compliments disappear from a woman's mind within seconds, while others stay with her for years. Most people compliment what is obvious: her face, her body, her style, her photos. And after hearing the same surface-level praise over and over again, many women learn how to emotionally detach from it. They smile politely, they say thank you, but internally, nothing truly moves. Because physical compliments may create attention, but they rarely create emotional impact. What many men fail to understand is that attraction becomes far more powerful when a woman feels psychologically understood instead of visually admired. And that changes everything. Welcome back to the Female Mind Lab. There's a hidden emotional loneliness many women carry silently in modern relationships. Not because they aren't desired, but because very few people actually notice who they are beneath the performance they show the world. A woman can spend years being called beautiful while secretly feeling emotionally invisible. And this is exactly why certain compliments feel almost addictive to the female mind. Imagine a woman who always appears strong around others. She's the one who keeps conversations alive. She comforts friends. She handles pressure quietly. She rarely complains. To the outside world, she looks emotionally composed. But then one man notices something deeper. Instead of saying, "You look good tonight," he says, "You always make everyone around you feel comfortable, even when you're probably exhausted yourself." That moment hits differently, because now she doesn't feel watched, she feels seen. Psychologically, this activates emotional validation at a much deeper level than appearance-based attraction. Human beings form stronger emotional attachment when someone recognizes parts of their identity they thought nobody noticed, especially women who spend most of their lives emotionally adapting to others. And the strange part is, the compliment itself is not what creates attraction. It's the feeling behind it. The feeling that someone paid enough attention to understand her emotional world without needing it explained. That kind of emotional observation creates intimacy incredibly fast, not artificial intimacy, real intimacy. Because women are naturally drawn toward people who make them feel emotionally safe to exist without pretending. And often, the compliments that matter most are not the loudest ones. They are the quiet observations that accidentally touch an insecurity, a hidden exhaustion, or an emotional truth she rarely speaks about out loud. That's why emotionally intelligent compliments stay in a woman's mind long after beauty-based compliments disappear. One feeds the ego for a moment, the other reaches the heart, and quietly stays there. And once a woman feels emotionally seen, something subtle begins to change inside her. She starts paying closer attention to the person who made her feel that way. Not because he tried too hard, not because he used perfect lines, but because emotional recognition is rare, especially in a world where most interactions feel rushed, shallow, and transactional. One of the deepest psychological needs humans carry is the desire to feel understood beyond the surface. And for many women, that need becomes even stronger in relationships because they often spend years being misunderstood emotionally while still appearing emotionally functional on the outside. That's why certain compliments create emotional tension that lingers long after the conversation ends. Not compliments about beauty, but compliments about identity. There's a massive difference between telling a woman, "You're attractive," and saying, "You have this calming energy that makes people open up around you." The first compliment acknowledges appearance. The second acknowledges emotional influence. And emotionally intelligent women notice that difference immediately. Because now she starts wondering something far more personal. How did he notice that about me? That question alone creates curiosity, and curiosity is one of the foundations of emotional attraction. A woman becomes emotionally drawn toward people who make her feel psychologically recognized in ways others fail to. For example, imagine a woman who constantly hides her intelligence behind humor because she's learned that being too deep intimidates people. Most men may only notice that she's funny or easy to talk to, but then someone quietly says, "You think about things much deeper than you let people see." That moment can feel emotionally disarming, because now she feels exposed in a strangely comforting way, not judged, not analyzed, understood. And psychologically, being understood creates emotional safety faster than charm ever can. This is why generic compliments usually fade quickly. They don't reveal attention. They don't reveal emotional awareness. They feel repeatable, like something that could be said to anyone. But identity-based compliments feel personal, specific, intentional. They communicate presence, and presence is becoming increasingly rare in modern dating. Most people listen just enough to respond. Very few observe enough to understand. That's why emotionally precise compliments can create such powerful attraction. They make a woman feel emotionally differentiated from everyone else around her. Not just desired, chosen psychologically. And when a woman starts associating someone with the feeling of emotional recognition, attachment naturally begins building beneath the surface, often before she even realizes it herself. The deeper attraction becomes, the less it has to do with appearance, and the more it begins revolving around emotional attention. Because most women are not emotionally affected by the men who notice everything, they're affected by the men who notice the right things. There's an enormous psychological difference. Many people hear words, very few notice emotional patterns, and women often reveal their emotional state indirectly rather than explicitly. Not because they want to play games, but because human emotions are rarely communicated in perfect sentences. They appear through energy shifts, silence, humor, eye contact, and subtle behavioral changes. An emotionally intelligent compliment recognizes those hidden signals. For example, a woman may laugh constantly in social settings, yet become unusually quiet when the conversation turns personal. Most people ignore that contrast completely, but a deeply observant man might softly say, "You're usually the one making everyone laugh, but I get the feeling you carry a lot internally without talking about it." That kind of statement creates immediate emotional gravity, because now she feels emotionally read. And for many women, being emotionally understood feels far more intimate than physical flirtation. This is where many men unintentionally fail in attraction. They focus entirely on impressing women instead of understanding them. But emotionally, women tend to connect more deeply with people who make them feel psychologically safe rather than socially impressed. And safety does not mean weakness. It means emotional permission. Permission to stop performing. Permission to stop pretending to be fine. Permission to feel understood without needing to explain every layer of themselves. That emotional experience becomes incredibly powerful because many women spend years adapting their emotions to protect themselves socially. Some learn to hide sensitivity behind confidence. Others hide exhaustion behind independence. Others use humor to avoid vulnerability entirely. And when someone notices these hidden emotional defenses without criticizing them, attraction can intensify rapidly. Because the compliment no longer feels like praise, it feels like connection. A woman may forget dozens of compliments about her beauty, but she will remember the person who noticed the sadness behind her smile, without forcing her to talk about it. She will remember the man who recognized her emotional effort when nobody else acknowledged it. And strangely, the more emotionally accurate the observation feels, the quieter her reaction often becomes. Not because she's unaffected, but because certain compliments touch parts of a person that are difficult to explain out loud. That's the hidden power of emotional observation. It creates intimacy before the relationship even becomes intimate. Because when a woman feels deeply understood, her guard does not collapse all at once. It slowly softens, and in many cases, that emotional softening is the exact moment real attraction quietly begins. As emotional attraction deepens, women begin responding less to what a man says about them, and more to how he makes them feel about themselves. And this is where one particular type of compliment becomes incredibly powerful. The compliment that speaks to emotional impact. Not beauty, not status, not perfection. Impact. Because deep down, almost every person wants to believe their presence matters to someone. They want to feel that they change the emotional atmosphere around them in a meaningful way. And women are no different. In fact, many women quietly measure connection through emotional influence rather than verbal affection alone. That's why a compliment like, "You're gorgeous," may feel pleasant for a moment, But a compliment like, "I always feel calmer after talking to you," reaches somewhere much deeper psychologically. Because now she's no longer being admired only for how she looks. She's being valued for how she makes someone feel emotionally. And emotional significance creates attachment far more powerfully than temporary admiration. Imagine a woman who spends most of her life trying to appear emotionally strong. She handles responsibilities. She supports people emotionally. She rarely lets others see when she's overwhelmed. Then one day, someone quietly tells her, "You have this peaceful energy that makes difficult moments feel lighter." That sentence can stay in her mind for days, not because it sounds romantic, but because it makes her feel meaningful. And psychologically, feeling meaningful inside someone else's emotional world creates deep internal attraction, especially when the compliment feels sincere and emotionally specific. This is also why emotionally impactful compliments often create stronger emotional reactions than dramatic flirting. They touch identity instead of ego. A woman begins to feel that her existence itself affects someone emotionally, that her presence changes the emotional temperature of a room. And once that emotional association forms, attraction often becomes subconscious. She starts remembering how she feels around him. She starts replaying conversations privately. She starts noticing his absence more intensely. Because human beings become emotionally attached to environments where they feel psychologically valuable. And one of the most attractive experiences for many women is feeling emotionally appreciated without needing to constantly prove their worth. That's rare, especially in modern relationships where so much attention is focused on appearance, performance, and validation. But when a man notices the emotional atmosphere a woman creates rather than simply complimenting how she looks inside it, something shifts emotionally. She feels less like an object being observed, and more like a person being emotionally experienced. And in many cases, that feeling becomes unforgettable. Because the compliments women remember most are usually not the ones that made them feel desired for a moment, but the ones that made them feel emotionally important in someone's life. And in the end, the compliments that create the deepest attraction are rarely the loud ones. They're usually quiet, simple, almost accidental. Because when a compliment feels overly polished or strategically delivered, many women instinctively sense the performance behind it. Emotional intuition is something women often develop strongly through years of social experience. They learn to recognize the difference between words designed to impress and words that come from genuine emotional observation. And authenticity changes everything. A man doesn't become unforgettable because he says the most dramatic things. He becomes unforgettable because, for a brief moment, he makes a woman feel emotionally understood in a way that feels real. That's why emotionally precise compliments carry so much psychological weight. Imagine a woman talking casually about her life, laughing, smiling, acting normal on the surface. Most people only react to the version of her she presents socially. But then someone says something unexpectedly honest, like, "You act strong around everyone, but I get the feeling you're tired more often than you admit." That kind of statement creates silence, not awkward silence, emotional silence, the kind where a person suddenly feels seen beyond the role they've been performing. And those moments stay with people, because human beings are emotionally drawn toward those who recognize their hidden emotional reality without trying to control it. This is also why timing matters so much in attraction psychology. The most powerful compliments are often delivered softly, naturally, and without desperation for a reaction. No forcing, no exaggeration, no trying too hard, just emotional honesty. And strangely, women often trust quiet sincerity more than intense charm, because sincerity feels emotionally safe. A woman may forget the man who constantly chased validation through compliments, but she will remember the one who noticed things nobody else paid attention to, the one who made her feel emotionally human instead of emotionally performed. And over time, this becomes the hidden foundation of real emotional attraction. Not manipulation, not techniques, not scripted lines, just deep attention. Because attention is incredibly rare now. Most people are distracted. Most conversations stay surface level. Most relationships become performances where people try to appear attractive instead of trying to genuinely understand each other. But emotional connection begins the moment someone feels safe enough to stop performing. And often, one emotionally honest compliment can open that door. I hope this video helped you understand relationships and human emotions from a deeper perspective. If you enjoy this kind of psychological content, stay connected with the Female Mind Lab, and I'll see you in the next video.